Everyone, if you join me in the pledge, we'll get the chief started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reminder of the mics. Try to use them as best as you can so everyone can hear. We have an agenda in front of us. I have not heard of any changes or corrections, so I'd ask for a motion to approve as printed.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second, Gillespie.
John? Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Randine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins? Yes. We've seen our reports. Assuming no questions on any of that, we have a consent agenda item list. Is there any questions on those? Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Gillespie.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. Sean? Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Randine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins? Yes. Takes us to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address any matter coming before the county? Please come up, give your name and address, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michelle Trent. I'm from the Compass Center in Sioux Falls. Our address at the Compass Center is 1704 South Cleveland Avenue, Suite 3, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I'm here to address you. You might not know me, so I am newly hired as the new executive director of the Compass Center and will be taking that position on October 5th. I am an employee of the Compass Center right now, though, and represent the clinical staff. And so I currently oversee the clinical department. So I'm here to discuss budget with you today. I hope that you all received a letter from our office outlining the benefits that we feel that we provide to Lincoln County. And so I want you to consider those benefits as you're thinking about budgets. Cuts this afternoon. I know that the county has budget cuts that need to be made, and so we're certainly aware of that and in support of those cuts. We're asking you to reconsider the amount of cuts that you are providing to the Compass Center. So certainly considering all of the pieces in the letter that was sent to you, there are about 5,000, statistically speaking, 5,000 females in Lincoln County that have been sexually assaulted, 10,000 females that have been a victim of domestic violence in their lifetime. If we also think about men, there's 917, statistically speaking, that have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, and 7,500 that have experienced domestic violence in their lifetime. That's a lot of citizens of Lincoln County and a lot of people that need support. We also know that when somebody has been traumatized, their ability to participate functionally as a functional and good member of society is impacted. And so there's a cost relationship with people who are traumatized. They deserve to have that counseling. They deserve to have advocacy and support. And so we're asking you to think about that as you're making the decisions on budgets that later this meeting. And certainly appreciate your support of the Compass Center in the past. We know that it's always a benefit to our organization to have counties involved. So thank you so much for your support in the past. We hope that we can count on you to continue that support going forward in the future. And I look forward to getting to know all of you when I officially take the position as executive director come October. So thank you so much for letting me speak today. And I hope that you will consider the letter that you received. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions at board?
What, you want to give us a number where, I mean, you would like to have it restored completely, but what is what's your bottom?
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly when we looked at the cuts proposed, that's a 79% reduction in what we are currently receiving. So right now we're receiving $24,000. The proposed is $5,000, and so that's a 79% cut. You know, we would, of course, like to see it remain at the 24. We're cognizant of the fact that that's probably not a possibility due to budget cuts. And so, you know, I think anything that you can look at, you know, to get it past 79% is important. We could get it even to 50% or more. I think that would be very helpful. So certainly I think any budget cuts impact our ability to provide services anywhere that we provide services, and so we want to make sure that we continue to provide those services, especially in light of the thought that you might build a public safety center, and then our services for PREA and the Prison Rape and Elimination Act would increase, and so that's certainly something that we want to keep in mind too as that goes forward.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, 12,000 is kind of you wouldn't want to see it go lower than that then.
If at all possible, yeah, more than that would be great, but I think thinking about those costs are good as well. Any other questions for myself?
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience that would like to address the county concerning any matter? With that, I'll turn it to the board. Anybody on the board that would like to share? Go ahead, Commissioner
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I've got a couple things, about three actually. First thing I'll ask you, are we going to be meeting the third week of September?
Yeah, we're in
Okay,
convention.
so that's a no, yeah. Okay, all right. And then I've had some requests, and I think Jim can relate to this. We've had some people contact me, and they said we're wondering if they could ever get a night meeting once a month. I'm just throwing it out there. I realize staff, it's kind of an issue for that, but I've had some requests if we could have one night meeting per month, and don't have to make, of course, any decisions right now, but it'd be easier for some people to come. So, and then I'm going to, the chairman isn't going to want to hear this, but I would sure like to, on the 22nd, talk about rescinding the land purchase vote. It's very confrontational, so, but I'm just throwing that out. I'll talk to Sean on that, but that's all I have, so.
Okay, very good. Anyone else?
David, I think concerning your night vote, I think we started that, I don't know how many years ago, and we've never been able to accomplish that. But I would concur that one night meeting a month, we should try that, because there's a lot of people who are unable to get from work and who probably would want to participate or have some comments. So I can't say that I would support something like that.
Yeah, and I don't know what, Marlene, you could tell me that, but is the first week or the fourth week more busier? Maybe there's a better week if we were to choose to do that. You know, I don't know. I just throwing that out there because there's some weeks that are heavier than others, so. But, okay.
I think it'll have to be a week in which, you know, the employees that are, now in a salary situation, we tried this, Commissioner Schmidt, back in early 2000s and literally had no income at that time. Not to say that would be the case this time, but there are some logistics that I'd have to get worked out. And Commissioner Gillespie and Commissioner Schmidt, if you want to work and try to get those logistics and see how that would work for employees as well as the public and the commission, that would be great. And come with a proposal how we might be able to get that done. So, excellent.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything further? Otherwise, we'll go on to Terry. Morning, Terry.
Good morning. I have before you, again this week, a resolution to delete roads from the primary county highway system. And they're designated on the map here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm going to read them off. So, section number 1 will be West Old Yankton Trail, Sioux Falls, starting at the quarter section of T100N, R50W, section 9, at the Lincoln, Minnehaha County line, then heading south approximately 0.845 miles to the intersection of South Baldwin Drive at the midsection of T100N, R50W, section 9. Number 2 will be South Louise Avenue, West 69th Street, Sioux Falls, starting approximately 1,965 feet north of the southeast corner of T100, R50W, section 20, at the intersection of 95th Street, then heading north approximately 1.632 miles to the intersection of West 69th Street, then heading east approximately 0.374 miles to the midsection of T100N, R50W, section 16. Number 3, South Cliff Avenue, Sioux Falls, starting at the northeast corner of T100N, R50W, Section 11, at the Lincoln-Minnehaha County line, then heading south approximately 1.348 miles to the intersection of the proposed Veterans Parkway. Number 4 here, East 57th Street, Sioux Falls, starting at the northeast corner of T100N, R49W, Section 8, at the intersection of South Dakota Highway 11, then heading west approximately 0.502 miles. These routes are being deleted from the primary highway system due to the jurisdictional transfer of these routes to the city of Sioux Falls.
Any questions on any of that? Otherwise, ask for a motion to approve. Move for approval. Any questions? Sean?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. The next 4 items have a time to schedule, so we'll jump to number 6. Julia. Good morning.
Good morning. One item for your consideration this morning, and that's to hire Joseph Matson as a full-time Deputy State's Attorney for the State's Attorney's Office at $2,840 biweekly, effective the 14th of September.
Any motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Gillespie.
When you're ready, Sean?
Commissioner Aaron's,
No.
Commissioner Gillespie,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Toby here? I don't know if we need him here to adopt the International Building Code. Does anybody need Toby down here for this?
No.
Is there a motion to that effect?
This is those are first readings. First reading.
Sorry. Toby, Sean, do you have something that we need to read for the record then?
I do not. I'm going to call Toby though.
Okay. We're going to take it. Oh, there's yeah, we all got those. No, thanks. So, we have number 10, which is a application that the city of T needs to, not even an application, notification of a waste dump site, paperwork requirement. Is there anybody that needs the actual document read into the record? Otherwise, it's just going to be entered as a hard form. It's just notification that they're going to operate a compost site. Any questions on it?
And this is for grass clippings and
That type of stuff. Yep.
Miscellaneous
Leaves.
Yeah. It's got something similar.
Yeah, this is the first time that they've sent us that I know of the paperwork. It's procedural member agenda, as I'm going to start. But if there's no questions on it, I'll authorize that Sean actually
Mr. Chairman.
signs it. So, second?
Second.
Thank you. Sean?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes. Oh, we got rid of one. Bill, you must have something for us.
Yes, we have, I need some directions on union negotiations with the sheriff's department. The sheriff is here for that. Probably won't take too long if we could go into.
Can we run through, let me get through these 3 hearings or readings, Toby, can we get this knocked out? That'd be your cue, sir.
Draw me off.
Good morning. Good morning.
So I have 3 items for first reading before you this morning. We'll go through each one a little bit independently. So the first one, so currently in Lincoln County, we've adopted the 2015 International Building Code, and this will be subsequent to the rest of them. This code is updated by the International Code Council every 3 years. So the latest version of that is 2018. Of course, they'll be coming out with the latest version in 2021. And so with this updated version of it,
So there's two parts to this. First is the International Code Council comes up with a uniform code, which is approximately 500 pages in length. And then we, as a local jurisdiction, we adopt local amendments to that. So staff works with the Home Builders Association to review local amendments. We try to base those local amendments regionally. So Minnehaha County, Sioux Falls, and ourselves try to adopt the same local amendments, just so there's consistency with building code across the jurisdictional boundaries. So International Building Code, of course, covers anything non-residential, so commercial, industrial properties, multifamily, which we don't allow multifamily in Lincoln County. So some changes from the 2018 that I'll make a note to you. A couple of things is that we have exemptions for building permit requirements. So for this particular code, our current accessory building standard is anything over 120 square feet does require a building permit, building inspection. So we're going to model that with Minnehaha County and Sioux Falls, and we're going to up that to 200 square feet in size. These prefab buildings are getting larger and easier to carry around, so that just makes us consistent with that. The other thing is, you're aware, we did adopt a new fee structure, and I believe it was right around 2018-19. So this code proposing a change to that, and that would be to cap the commercial side of it. So currently we charge 0.4% for residential, 0.45% for commercial. What we've realized, we've had some pretty sizable commercial properties, so we're proposing to cap that at a $5 million cap, so that would stop at that level. And so that kind of gets us in line with the different things we're doing there. So again, the local amendment to the IBC would be that first one. And then the second one would be the International Residential Code. Of course, that covers only single-family dwellings, agricultural structures. Again, no changes to that other than what I just previously mentioned. And then the third and last one would be the International Existing Building Code, and that covers any structures that are currently in existence. So we do in the unincorporated, we do have a lot of structures, residential type structures that are quite old. And so this allows, the International Existing Building Code allows us to maintain additions, expansions of those structures under an existing code, as opposed to making those structures come into compliance with the new standards. With that, I'd be happy to answer your questions. I believe we scheduled the second reading for that for the last meeting of this month. And kind of another, so staff's currently working with, as the chairman's aware, is that the ISO does a rating for fire rating for building inspection. And so Lincoln County has never participated in that. We've always received a 99 rating, which does impact our property owners when it comes to our insurance. And so part of the update, part of us getting a better rating on that would be we're up to date with the current code. So that's kind of really the impetus for adopting the 2018 at this time. And so in discussing it with the ISO rating individuals, that this would help us quite a bit with that rating, as well as staff's current participation in the process right now. So that would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Toby, are you proposing that we're going to adopt the IBC as amended by the home builders process, or are we going to adopt the IBC without the amendments?
We're adopting all of it with the local amendments, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I've been working with the Home Builders Association staff to review it. And so I believe they'll probably come on the 22nd. Todd Adolowski will probably come down on the 22nd and testify to that.
Any questions? Hearing none. Toby, you want to head on to the next?
I don't have any other readings. I got the schedule at 9 o'clock. If you want me to start on that, or if you want to wait.
Now we need to wait.
No. Okay.
Am I looking for Jake and not seeing Jake's in the back? You ready? You want to talk about a logo? We got about 10 minutes.
Good morning.
I'm here to seek approval from the board for a new logo and seal for the county. We finalized the logo and the seal. It's almost identical to what you've seen before. Here's the logo, and its color scheme. More colors and design I have for the logo. Here's the seal with the color and design. This is part of the website to try to get branding for the county. I keep the department heads up to date on this, on the website, on the logo and everything. And it's gotten to the point where everyone wants to start using it now. So I'm seeking approval sooner rather than later so that all the departments in the county can start using it and creating a identity for Lincoln County so we can put it on all our letterheads, envelopes, things like that. Any questions?
Jake, and Jim's gonna have to cover his ears here, but, what is it gonna cost to switch over to this one?
It shouldn't cost anything additional because what's really gonna happen is, like any pre-printed envelopes or any of that stuff, we're gonna use that up. And then when they go to use them up, okay. Yep, we will not get rid of anything that we have right now. So that's where some departments need to buy envelopes or letterheads, and then some don't. So we're gonna it's gonna be like a 6-month process to integrate this into every department.
See, Commissioner, you're conservative ways. I mean, we're using everything. I know.
I figured you'd might say something.
I just think this is a step in the right direction, and I think it's a high time that we adopt a logo for our county. Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve what Jake has put in front of us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Hearing no other discussion. Sean?
Commissioner Haynes?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt? Yes. Commissioner Poppins?
Yes.
Just give us a couple stickers on that.
Bill, do we still have enough time, do you think?
Do the MOU.
Do the MOU.
We can do it? We have a request for executive session pending contractual matters. Sean, if you'd read that resolution or that ordinance or requirement statute, thank you.
Executive session for consulting with legal counsel or reviewing communications from legal counsel about proposed pending litigation or contractual matters, SDCL 125-2-3.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Gillespie.
Second. Sean?
Commissioner Haynes?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes, we'll be in executive session for hopefully not that long. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Gillespie.
When you're ready, Sean.
Commissioner Haynes?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes. Toby.
This is a second reading and public hearing for an ordinance of Lincoln County amending Article 12, Section 12.02C9, Commercial Wind Energy Conversion Systems Decommission, Restoration, Abandonment of the 2009 Revised Zoning Ordinance of Lincoln County, South Dakota.
Good morning again. So this is a particular amendment. I'll start out by saying this one and the next one are both zoning ordinance amendments. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing in May of this year. And we also allowed Zoom at that meeting.
no one testified really for or against any of these. So any information that we glean today is information that will be new to staff as well. And so really, this is the time and place for the public hearing and for the second reading. But you have the option to adopt, reject, or amend this version. If there's some new information that's gleaned from the public, of course, then you want to amend it, then we would have to schedule an additional public hearing, which staff is all in support of. This year has been a challenge like any other as far as conducting public meetings. I thought Zoom was the right way to do it when we did it in May, but unfortunately no one participated. So again, any information we knew. So this particular amendment happens to do with deal with Section 1202C9, and this is the additional use regulations or wind energy conversion section. If you recall, you did amend the two most important parts of the wind energy ordinance, and that was your setbacks and your noise restrictions for commercial RECs. That ultimately was referred to a vote of the public, and that was upheld. And so there is some additional other changes in that section that we're going to take a look at. Particularly, staff felt the most important would be this decommissioning section. And throughout the whole process that we've been looking at the wind energy section, staff has been concerned with this section, primarily because of the way that it's an ordinance. And particularly, the requirement that the county would approve if the county approved a wind energy conversion system project, there wouldn't be any discussion of decommissioning. That would take place after the project had been built. And then staff would work with the applicant to determine what the decommission plan would be. Concern with that would be is that, again, the most important part is if our project is allowed is what's the provision to remove it. And so it looks like, and we have, the Planning Commission, we work with the Planning Commission, and we have struck most of what is currently there now. And this would be the new language as far as that. And so two parts of this. The first is that we would combine the abandonment with state law. So state law says any time a conditional use permit is issued, that permit is valid as long as there isn't a year that it would cease to exist, and then it would go away. That's by state statute. The next part of that is that, and really when staff research this, we don't have to go too far. There's adjoining states that have wind energy projects, in addition to those that are in South Dakota. One of the themes that we found from a lot of discussions with different individuals was that they felt that all the ordinance required that there would be bonds and letters of surety and those different types of requirements. What they found out, though, was that typically these companies transfer hands quite a bit in between approval, in between operation, and even in between operation. They also found out that a lot of them did go bankrupt. And once they went bankrupt, of course, that means there is no money. So there's no money to aid in the reclamation of the site. What they found out, though, was that what was the biggest concern that we listened to was essentially what we already know, and that's who's ultimately responsible for removal of these, the property owner, the landowner. And so they felt that a lot of their current ordinances weren't transparent in the aspect that if you read their ordinances, and even if you read our current ordinance, you'll be led to believe that the landowner is not going to be responsible in the event that there's a bankruptcy or other type of issue associated with the operation of them. So within this new amendment, it would be explicitly clear that there has to be a copy of the executed lease furnished to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission then should make sure that if there isn't any language in there about decommissioning, that it should be. And the second part of that is that we end with really what is reality is that if there is an issue, the property owner is ultimately responsible. The county is not going to take them down. The property owner will be taking them down. In the real world, yes, we would want the applicant to do it. But our office deals with at least once a week. We just had one from last week where there was a rezone denied where the applicant placed a bunch of fill, 4 feet of fill on the property. And so the property owners asking the county is how do we address this? we address it with the property owners ultimately responsible. That's according to state law. So with that, I kind of gave you a justification of essentially what the justification was for the amendment that was presented. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions that you have for staff. Who wants to start off?
I can talk, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Toby. There's a couple things in here, not to make it difficult, but this, I'll start with the 5 calendar days. You think that's a little on the short side, or, on page, I don't have a number, but I don't know, 5 days, recommended improvements within 5 days, calendar days seems a little on the short side, but that's just me, of course. And then $15,000 a turbine for 30 years after, if they are decommissioned and they're ever built, maybe the cost would be even more than that to take them down. We're looking at $450,000. You got to bring in a 900,000 pound crane and all kinds of things. So I don't know. I'm just a little concerned about that. And those are a couple things anyway.
Commissioner, I think you're referencing the document that was submitted by WeCare. This is the draft that the Planning Commission recommended adoption of.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? We're refraining the public hearing on this, so if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the change, please come out and address the board with your name and address, please. Let the record show no one got up. Is there anybody opposed to the changes? Please come up and address the board, name and address, please.
David Fowler, 470-485, 289th Street, Beresford. Good morning. First, I would just like to state that the document that Commissioner Gillespie was referring to is not a WeCare document. That actually came from the ad hoc committee that was formed roughly about a year ago. I would say that the document, I did bring that forward at the ad hoc committee, but certainly that was something that I was really trying to look at both sides of the issues on. I can tell you that WeCare members would have an issue with some of the information in that document. So that was not a WeCare document. I don't want anybody to be confused by that. Okay? This morning I do come to you as a president of WeCare though. And I do apologize, we weren't at the planning and zoning meeting because it was a difficult time and it just sort of snuck up on us. We didn't see that. Otherwise, we certainly would have given some public testimony at that point in time. So apologize for that. It's been stated this ordinance amendment strengthens and sometimes it's been stated that it clarifies the county's requirements for commercial RECs. I would argue that it really doesn't do that at all, but it actually weakens it. If you look at what's removed and then what was added, there are crucial pieces that are missing from this proposed added portion. This includes land reclamation, road removal, just to name a few of the very obvious pieces. It's your duty as Lincoln County to protect us, and this amendment clearly doesn't do that. It does not protect the county or the landowners that could be responsible for the decommissioning. If anything, this proposed amendment is less clear and weakens the current ordinance. On a personal note, I'd like to say that, it was asked for public comments and for public information where we could improve ordinance that we had. And during the ad hoc committee meetings, there was information that was given during that ad hoc committee. You have it in front of you. There was an alternative that needs some tweaking yet, but was really receptive from all the members on the ad hoc committee. That information isn't seen in this amendment whatsoever. Even the thought processes and the ideas are not in this proposed amendment that was brought forward by the public. And that's just disappointing. But let's look at this amendment itself. right away we look at that first sentence. It says it does not generate energy for 12 months, but then gives excuses if there's a lack for the amount of energy produced, repair, modernization. It sounds like a long period of time to me, 12 months. With that being said, why is there any excuses? It could be 2 years. It could be 3 years. If it hasn't been generating energy for 12 months, and it's because they needed to have repairs done, certainly the owner of that project is going to get those repairs done within 12 months because they're losing money. If the energy isn't needed because they don't have a buyer, well, they don't have a buyer, then why have it? We don't need to have additional time more than the 12 months for that to occur. I would question if 12 months is a long period of time. 6 months may be more reasonable. I think this also sort of brings forward the fact that it's important to have a power purchase agreement prior to issuing a conditional use permit from the county. That would guarantee that there is a buyer for the energy and that a project isn't built and they do not have a buyer for it once it's been built. That currently is not in our ordinance. It's in the alternative ordinance that you have in front of you, but it is not in the proposed ordinance here either. This amendment requires removal of the structure itself, but it doesn't address so many other things, as I had mentioned before, land reclamation, access roads, things such as that. This is also a very high part of the decommissioning process, and is totally overlooked in this amendment. It takes a significant amount of work and money to get the land back to what it was before the project was started, and that's what should be expected by the county and by the landowners. It mentions removal of supporting equipment, but I ask, what is that? What is supporting equipment? Is it equipment for the turbine itself? Is it for the project? Does it include feeder lines, substations, switch yards? Does it include transmission lines? Does it include road repairs due to all the heavy equipment that's used? Just as Commissioner Gillespie mentioned, all that heavy equipment, road issues that we're concerned about with the project starting, we're going to have those same issues when it's ended during the decommissioning process. This is way too vague if we want to protect Lincoln County and the landowners from a huge bill at the end of the wind project. You're asking also in this proposed amended ordinance, you're asking the developer or the wind project owner to give an estimate for decommissioning. That is probably one of the worst things you could ask for. I say that because the developer has to give you an estimate on the cost of decommissioning and land reclamation. That's not what they do. They don't do that type of thing. They develop, they don't look at decommissioning. Secondly, we certainly have numerous reports from independent engineers, and they all have a very similar theme when it comes to estimations that come from projects. And that theme is that there's a huge underestimation of the cost. Independent engineers have said time and again that scrap value that is in these estimates by the project engineer are generally overvalued, and they don't take into consideration the cost of cutting it, hauling it, and getting it to somewhere that will accept it for scrap. Quite often, they say that it's a wash. Recently, they decommissioned a few turbines up by Lake Benton. They buried them. They did not take them for scrap, just to give you a local idea. We all know the difficulty of disposing of the massive blades. That's been in the news lately. I don't think we need to talk about that. Therefore, I'm considering some type of bond to protect Lincoln County and the landowners. Scrap value should never be included in cost estimates, and it needs to be done by independent engineers who are hired by the county, and then that cost is billed to the project. Most of us here have an idea that the cost of decommissioning a commercial REX project is massive. You have some information in front of you. There have been some local projects in Minnesota that Xcel Energy gave some decommissioning costs on that just started turning. Up by Granite Falls, I believe it was over $450,000 per turbine. In Nobles County, it was over $500,000 per turbine for removal. That's today. It's not 20 years from now. So this is a huge cost. You shouldn't expect to, you need to have some protection for the landowners because they're not going to be able to afford that. The production tax credit, which is really a lot of these are being built. That's tricky. It's not going to be here forever. We already have problems with bankruptcies. When that happens and the production tax credit goes down or is gone, there's going to be more. We have to ensure that there's some form of assurance in the form of some type of security or bond that's not part of the project portfolio. It needs to be separate. It needs to be in the hands of the county to protect ourselves from this high cost of decommissioning an abandoned project. This is for whoever is running the project at limitless use and therefore is actually in the best interest to you. Although I'm sure that the project would disagree because they're taking away current profit to pay for future expenses. We understand that currently, as I said, it'll cost anywhere from $300,000 to over $500,000 a turbine to decommission a project today. What that cost will be in the future, who knows, but I would put money on it's not going to be any cheaper. When we had a vote a few years ago for setbacks of the wrecks from the residents, it was clear and overwhelming in the results that the people of Lincoln County wanted protection, not some vague ordinance that isn't clear, that doesn't say what is expected and puts an industrial project's desires over the people of Lincoln County. The high cost of decommissioning is just starting to come to the forefront across the United States. Let's get out in front of it and not try to do things from behind. This section of the Rex ordinance had a lot of people with concerns and criticisms a few years ago. As a commission, some of you also said that there needed to be some updating on this part of the ordinance. This proposed amendment doesn't improve this section at all or address those concerns. It only increases the concerns of the people of Lincoln County, and it fails to protect all of us from this huge potential cost burden. We can do better than this amendment. We strongly encourage you to deny this amendment. Look at an alternative. You have it in front of you. That needs to have some tweaks done to it, but you have a base there to work with. It's more defined. It's what the people are asking for, and it's in the best interest of Lincoln County. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them now or at any other time.
Thank you. Any questions at this time? Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Anybody else who would like to speak in opposition to the ordinance? Seeing none, we'll turn it back to the board. Is anybody on the board that would like to address this at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I've made my comments. Thank you, David, for clarifying that, the ad hoc thing. So thank you for doing that. So,
Mr. Chairman, have we had a chance to really review what Mr. Brower has put forward? Have we really made that comparison and to see how that shapes up with what proposals Toby has made to us?
Only by the fact, I suppose, what the planning and zoning has gone through at this point in time and presented what they have.
You know, I think this is a far-reaching situation, and since we don't have any Rex towers in our county, but I do think it merits a review on our part to look at what is proposed and put side by side on what David has presented to us. And therefore, I'd like to table this for at least a time or two, and to be able to do that.
Second. If that's a motion.
That's my motion.
Second.
Okay. Any questions on that? We can definitely table it. Again, I'm going to reiterate the opposition to wind turbines in the county is strong enough that I think it's a simplistic answer is just simply outlaw it. and the vote of the people would have the opportunity to decide that. I think that's a simple thing that puts to rest all of these issues of what we do or don't have. That would be my support, is if the residents of Lincoln County don't want to have them, let's put it on that we just don't have them. It makes all of this mute, and I think it's a much more clear answer to all of these questions. But with that, we have a motion to table. Sean?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes. Now it's tabled. Next, Toby.
So this particular amendment deals with section 1206, this is accessory buildings and uses. And as I've told you at the first reading, the current process in Lincoln County right now is any accessory building over 1,500 square feet in a residential district or in a subdivision of 4 or more lots requires a conditional use permit. And so over the years, the planning commission has grappled with if they should increase the threshold so we can decrease this. What I will tell you is that in the last 2 months, we've had 5 of these that have approached, so we've had denial on the one, and we've got some upcoming ones. So I'll make this easy and just say I think you should table this indefinitely until we can work on this a little bit more detail. I'm concerned that the threshold of 1,500 has been in place since 2009. It's allowed there's been a lot of homeowners associations that have adopted the 1,500 square feet. So there's some challenges to make sure that we're all in compliance with that. So again, this particular amendment would change it to based on lot sizes. So the threshold would first be any parcel of 2 acres or less. They would be allowed up to 2,000 square feet, so we'd bump that to 500 square feet. And then jumping with additional parcels, so 5 acres would be allowed 3,000 square feet, and 5 acres would be allowed 4,000 square feet. And then the other part that I think is of concern too is that in the current ordinance we don't have anything that addresses agricultural structures. So prior to 2009, we allowed structures to be built on 40 acres of land prior to the house being built. That no longer exists in the 2009. We do get a lot of requests for that. We're not able to allow that request because the ordinance requires that no accessory building shall be built unless there's a primary structure on the property. And then, so that was kind of a substantial change there. The last thing that drew some questions from the board, and that's really mobile structures. So we do get a lot of requests for individuals to place what I'll call mobile structures, and those that have wheels on them, so essentially like shipping containers, those different types of things. This would explicitly prohibit those mobile and movable structures on the property.
And that would be anywhere.
Correct.
No,
Ag,
anything.
Correct, yeah. So again, since April of this year, our office has been swamped. We're record building permits, we're record application permits, and individuals are building a lot of accessory structures right now. At the time, in April, staff thought that this was a good way to move forward, to increase the threshold to move forward with it. But as we're dealing with it, these are, especially within subdivisions, are major impacts on adjoining property owners. So I guess the staff, I'd recommend this time that you just temporarily table this one, or table indefinitely.
You've heard the request from our planning and zoning director. Do you wish to discuss or simply table at this time? We have to do a public, but just so the public knows which way we're moving before we talk about it.
No, that's your
All right,
recommendation.
so I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Seeing none, is there any in opposition to this ordinance? With that, I would ask for a motion to table.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
A motion and second to table. Sean?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie,
Yes.
Commissioner Landine,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Next is a public hearing for the appeal of conditional use permit USE 0056-2020 for David Cooper Seed Sales for an agriculturally related operation involving the handling, storage, transporting, and shipping of farm products. Requested seed sales. Planning Commission denied 241. The location is approximately 1/3 mile east of the intersection of 469th Avenue and South Dakota Highway 44 near Lennox. Okay, good morning again. This application is approximately 2 miles west of the city of Worthing. It would be approximately right here, right about there. And I'll go back to this in a second. So the applicant for this particular item is David Cooper on behalf of Cooper Seed and Supply. Property owner is Donna and Sir Abbas. The proposed use would be a seed sales operation, and this, as part of that, there would be a 19,200 square foot building, approximately 80 foot by 200 foot and 80 foot by 40 foot, and approximately 1,080 square foot office, a 36 by 30. It would be utilized as Cooper Seed and Supply. Zoning district is A1 agricultural. Comprehensive plan identifies this as future agricultural area. This is a conditional use within the A1 agricultural district, and again, it will allow construction of a building to operate seed sales. I'll go back to the other map. Typically, we show just the regulatory floodplain on here on this map with the zoning. As you can see, there is a regulatory floodplain on the subject property. And like zoning on all adjacent properties, so all properties adjoining are zoned A1 agricultural. This was the concept plan that was submitted with the application. Again, this would be a seed sales building, so primarily be a temporary type use. They're busy in the spring and a little bit in the fall. This was the concept plan or site layout plan that was submitted with the application. Again, the building would be placed on approximately 10 acres that would be bought from Don and Sarah Abbas, and that's where the building would be placed on the property. Again, the Planning Commission did deny the application. It was appealed by the applicant. And so you have before you an appeal from the applicant. You have really three options this morning. The first is to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission, overrule the decision of the Planning Commission, or the third option would be to amend it. Staff would recommend if you decide to approve this application, would recommend that you amend it so that you can include these conditions on the application, because with the Planning Commission denial, there was no conditions placed on it. So it's really, you can't overrule, you'd have to amend it if you want to approve it. I go back to there once. And so when the applicant did come in to appeal it, there was some discussion at the Planning Commission meeting of the applicant moving the structure. I did sit down with the applicant and with John Peters, our floodplain administrator. There was some discussion if we could move it further to the west, away from the residential structures here. That according to our flood risk, and that there would be some challenges to moving it. Really, where the applicant's placing it is the high level or high ground of that property. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff.
Toby, what was the main reason why the planning board rejected this application?
Well, it was motion to approve, and then it was denied by the vote. I don't recall specifically if any of the members specifically said why. I would say the major concern is that there is some residential properties, and I know some of those old property owners are in attendance this morning. There's some residential property directly to the south, as well as I think there was some maybe some desire to see if they could move it on the property. But we've since worked with our floodplain administrator, and that's really that part where it's at. That point where it's at now is really the high point of it. And so that's the best I can tell you of kind of the reason why.
Did they look up Highway 111 as well? I mean, I know you looked on Highway 44, but if you looked up, that's 160 acres. I just wondered if they went further up on Highway 111.
I don't know specifically if that was discussed, no. But I think, I've talked to the applicant, there are other options, that we can look at, so.
What was staff's recommendation?
Staff recommendation is approval. And again, primarily because this is a use, it's a conditional use in the agricultural district. There is residential uses to the south, but those are agricultural properties. So the same use could be afforded to any agricultural property in the district.
Very good. Anything, questions by the board at this time? Otherwise, I'll ask for the applicant to come up.
Commissioner Schmidt, I was at the planning and zoning meeting that night, the hearing. I sat on the board. There was significant testimony given about drainage concerns and things like that. Whether those have materialized into something that could be a legitimate concern, I don't know. But I do see a number of the neighbors are here, and I'll let them testify, and you can take it from them. But the big watchword at the hearing was drainage concerns.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Toby, could you do an overlay? I believe the property was right across from that person's driveway. Could you do an overlay to show where it actually would be on 144?
Right about here.
Okay, it'd be to the west of that driveway of that property to the south there, right?
Well, it's to the west of this field access, right about here.
Okay, west, right in that area then?
Right about here. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll follow up on Commissioner Aaron's comments too. Correct. There was some drainage concerns. So 2 parts to that. There was some concerns with access. This is a state highway. We don't have any jurisdiction over the access of it. I have talked to the DOT about they will require some application be submitted. I don't know if the applicant's done that as of yet. There was some concern with at the corner here, there's some drainage issues right there. And there was some questions about if the county had or had not replaced a culvert or those different types of things. We've determined that any drainage off of this site will not impact this in any way. It would be right there. So,
and the option that Commissioner Schmidt talked about on 111, that's I see there's problems over there too as far as you'd have to go north, wouldn't you, a ways? Yeah.
all of that gray area will be future firm or flood insurance rate in that property.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to the applicant. The applicant, I see, is in the audience. If you'd like to come up at this time and address the board.
Good morning. David Cooper, 28137 464th at Lenox, South Dakota. I'm the applicant for this property to be purchased under the company of Cooper Seed and Supply. We are applying to this with Pioneer Seed Company, which is a well-organized establishment that requires great goals and property, that we have to take care to make it an elite business. So we talked with Don Abbas. Don cannot be here due, he was worried about the corona, so him and his wife stayed home. But we would like to purchase anywhere between 5 and 10 acres. If we have not done that, we are, I guess, waiting on the approval of what happens here today.
So Dave, there's some issues that were addressed at the planning and zoning, I understand. Is there any comment on any of those at this time? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to the audience.
Just like Toby had said earlier, we, kind of went through this quarter of land, and the reason that we had picked this is that, first of all, it's on a state highway, which gives us access to a few of our trucks and that they are eligible or required to be able to come down those. We looked at highway to the north and to the west there. That is still inadequate for our building site due to there's problems with excess water that can build there. So we wouldn't be able to, take that chance with the type of dollars that the seed inventory would be to take on such a water, happening that has happened the last few years.
Okay. Any questions by the board first? Nothing? I think we're going to ask you to sit down for a second.
Okay.
First, I'm going to ask, is there anybody else in the audience that is in favor of this conditional use permit appeal? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience against it? If you are, please come up, give your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Janelle Horner. Address is 46933 South Dakota Highway 44, Lennox. So our home is right there on the map. I live here with my husband Corey and our 3 children. And thank you for letting me come and speak today. We have several concerns about this proposed building permit. And the first and foremost one is safety, specifically traffic safety. As you guys can imagine, the traffic on State Highway 44 is very busy. Even busier in the fall and the spring with CHS Eastern Farmers just a mile down the road. I believe the excess traffic caused by this building, trailers, semis pulling in and out of business on a 65-mile-an-hour stretch of highway is very dangerous. One example that I have would be the tragic accident that just happened in front of D&D Small Engine Repair. You got a 65-mile-an-hour road there with a gentleman having to stop to turn into that driveway, and unfortunately he was rear-ended and killed. Accidents do happen, that's why they're called accidents, but I do not care for an accident in that manner to be happening in front of my property. Another example that I have is a reference that I would have from the Lennox bus director, Russ Nelson, who you guys may know from being a deputy sheriff. When our children want to ride the bus to school in the morning, the only option is to be on the bus at 6:45 in the morning when the bus is heading to the east. And that is because the door of the bus will be on that side of our home. When the bus goes back to Lennox to the west at 8 o'clock, he will not stop at our home. He will not allow for our children to cross the highway. I said, what if I'm there to help the kids get across the highway? And he said, absolutely not. You could have a small army there. People do not respect the roadway and the bus. It is not safe for your children to cross the road on a state highway. These rules do not apply to other highways in the county, but they apply to the state highway 44 because it's not safe for my children. And if they have to ride the bus an hour earlier, of course I would do that. But I thought that was a very interesting vision that he has, why that's not safe for my children. Another concern that I have is that you guys are, this is being classified as a conditional use permit because it's agriculture. I do see where that falls in you guys' vision of agriculture, but in my vision, this is a commercial business. It has a storefront. He's selling product for a profit. That to me is a commercial business. Agricultural business, you're making money from the land when you're growing a crop. This is not an agricultural use in my mind. what happens in 10 years down the road, not that I want this to happen, what if this seed business does not work? What are you going to do with this large building? Probably isn't going to be agricultural use anymore if it's sold off as something else. Or what if the Avises decide to sell another 5 or 10 acres, this time to a mechanic shop, a welding shop? That's commercial business. Well, we've already got one business there, might as well do another. Now I have commercial development directly across from my home. About a week and a half ago, silage cutters came out and cut out the section that is proposed for this building. And to be honest, until that happened, I was not so much really concerned, not crazy concerned. But since that corner has been cut out, I have to tell you that I've been honestly sick about it. As I sit in my kitchen at the table and look out the window, I see your business. When I'm outside playing with my children in the yard at the sunset, I see your business. When I go down my driveway, look down my driveway, all I see staring me in the face is your business. We purchased this property in 2013 as our dream home, with the excitement to raise our children in the country, teach them the value of livestock, hard work, and most importantly, freedom and open spaces. This is going to be taken away from us by this development. Dave, we are not against you. We are not against your family. We've known you for our whole life. I wish you could make this business and make it work. I just do not care for it to be directly across from my home. There's a lot of acres here. I understand there's some other issues. That part's not my issue. My issue of this is being directly across from my home. This building has not been built yet. I don't know why it cannot be placed somewhere else. I cannot pick up my home, my tree rows, my outbuildings, and place them somewhere else. I thank you guys for taking time to listen to me and make my points. I hope you will see the work that the Planning and Zoning Commission has already done and uphold their vote to deny this conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, with that, I'm going to recognize that no one else approached. Anybody else from the board like to ask any questions of staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple questions for Dave, if you wouldn't mind coming up, Dave. Thank you. I got to ask you this, and I don't want to hit you below the belt, but
That's fine.
Is there another location, possibly?
Not at this moment.
Nothing on 44 in either direction then?
No, sir. Not that I've spoke with on any further landowners of that part on their day.
There's not a second backup spot. And the property to the intersection there to the west, going south there, that isn't at the intersection. That wouldn't be a possibility either. You haven't talked to those two landowners.
To the west and the south.
Yeah.
Which would be...
Yeah, and I don't know who owns that, but...
the Snydermans, I think, is who it is. I have not talked to them, no. I have not.
It was just a thought. You know, I see I see across the road there's some problems with water, maybe to the west there and south of the intersection. It's better, so. But.
If I recall on a couple of things that they're asking of us as being neighbors, we did the same thing, or I did talk to the school bus, Russ, and that stuff, and I asked him about the safety of kids, and I have the same concern that she does. However, speaking with Russ, I asked him, she said exactly what they do. When they never make the kids cross the road. And coming back, however, I did ask him, I said, if there is a problem with picking up kids on the bus, I said, in years past, you guys drove onto the yard. He has no problems with accommodating to any of those acreages or places to pick up kids. He said all they have to do is ask if they're, extremely that worried about it. Second of all, you're talking about speed on Highway 44. It is a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit. However, if we build there, you have to remember that we're going to slow traffic down because we'll be using the turn into that place. So people are going to have to slow down, which creates them guys not being able to speed faster. We're using pickups with, we call them seat tenders, a wagon. We'll be responsible of, making sure that traffic, when we pull out or pull in, they are going to have to slow down one way or the other. So, being that said, we all know that Eastern Farmers is CHS on the corner. That place was built in 2004, if I'm correct. These neighbors that would be have known that when they bought those acreages, that those places for convenience and speed, and that is all had been there prior years to them moving there. That's what came with the convenience of them moving to the places to have nice road access, snow removal, good location to go to town, all events, interstate. So those are some of the concerns that, I wanted to address that would make this place ideal for our company. I have a question, David. You said you were going to slow the speed down. Are you going to, that would take an action of the Department of Transportation to lower that speed limit.
I didn't mean it by that. I meant that we have to slow down to turn.
Yeah, and maybe similar to what was used on Highway 17.
Yes.
You still have a great deal of traffic.
Correct.
David, I'm not opposed to any of this stuff, and I know that we have people on our board that look at this. But I look at developers, and maybe I watch too many of them. They will take a site that may not be the most desirable, and I know we have somebody that likes to have a coloring book and make all of these nice, pretty pictures on here. I question sometimes the degree of all of that floodplain, because I drive by that on 111. Every time I leave a commission meeting, I go by there. I've been by there 500 times. And I look at Highway 11, and where I'm hung up is that I think there are places on 111 that would make a more suitable place for a business to have access on and off. I am hung up on going on Highway 44 with the speed of the traffic that is there, and I'm hung up also on the safety of the kids that are there, and I know you've addressed all of that, but that's where I'm hung up on, and I'm going to stick with that. I know that I may not be most popular on that one, but that's where I sit on that one. So I look at Highway 11 as being a better alternative with some modification. It may add some cost to the development, but I think in the long-term area, you would be better served on that one than you would be on Highway 44.
David, are you agreeing to, either with or without going through the permit process from DOT, are you voluntarily agreeing to put in a turning lane to the property?
They said they would determine that. DOT would.
Okay, so you're not going to just volunteer to do that. You want to wait to see what they'll say.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have the
resources.
I don't know that even if you wanted to, you would have to be able to correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, it's a DOT decision either way.
Well, we went through that with the Lennox Auto Mall place where we were going through the permit process, and they just voluntarily agreed to do it, even though they had to redo the traffic study. So the DOT allowed it there.
Excuse me.
I'm not sure. I mean,
I understand.
it's- the business to the east of us is, 20-fold, and there's no turning lane there.
One question I have for you, Dave. Semi-low lots. I mean, you're handling seed in units of, X amount of acres per bag and all that. What would be your projection of how many semi-truckloads would be coming in and out of that in a season?
So if we sold 10,000 units of corn in, say, bags or just units, that would roughly be 800 units per semi.
So 12, 13.
So the bulk bins are roughly 3,500 units per bin. So there's 5 of them. And that would roughly be 800 units per semi also. So there's
25 truckloads?
Yeah. And that's not all in one day. It never will be. The most it would be is probably 4 at one time during the period from anywhere from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m.
Otherwise, everything else typically would go out when you're going to customers with a pickup and trailer.
Less than 25% of them actually come to the business. 75% of the time we do our business out at their place.
Very good. Any other questions for Toby? Otherwise, I've got some questions for staff here.
Yeah, I don't have any questions at this point. I just wanted the conditions put back up on the projector.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Yep. Toby, in our ordinances and conditional use permitting process, is there anything on this applicant that doesn't meet any of our requirements?
Well, there is criteria that's associated with the application approval, and staff's, including the staff report and the analysis, really how the criteria is like zoning, like use, and really kind of how staff looked at this as well too is that it's a seasonal type operation. So the impact of it should just be primarily 3-4 months out of the year, if I'm correct on that part of it. And then so that was really the criteria that staff did the analysis on, was those main 2 criteria. Knowing that staff, when we're preparing a staff report, we don't get the benefit of talking to the neighbors in advance and hearing their concerns and their wishes and things like that. We did anticipate that there was those neighboring residences though, so we did include a condition that there really shouldn't be any outside storage that's not screened, the development of it. So everything should be within the building.
Did you, or the downlighting, was that added only at the planning and zoning?
That was at prior to the public hearing.
These recommendations come from staff.
Prior to the public hearing, yes.
Were these conditions were not part of the planning and zoning?
Yes, they were. Yep.
They were in front of them.
Yes, but we developed it prior to the public hearing, so.
Board, any other questions for Toby?
Mr. Chairman, Toby, that was a 2-4-1. You want to enlighten on was it 4 against, 2 or 4, and then 1 didn't vote?
So the motion was an affirmative motion to approve the application, and then it was 2 voted for it, and then 4 against it, and the 1 abstained, I believe, was Commissioner Aaron's.
Yeah, I abstained because I arrived late and didn't get an opportunity to hear Mr. Cooper's side of the story.
So we have an appeal application in front of us. Staff recommendation was to approve. Planning and zoning had a split, a denial of the application. Not real sure clarification from why the planning and zoning denied it. I think there's, what I hear from board, some reluctance to have it placed across from some agricultural zoned residential property. But with that, Commissioner, I don't disagree. I wouldn't want it across the road. I will, but I don't know, again, what powers that we should ever have. And I'm going to admit that we've done it in the past and I've disagreed with it, that we then make applicants move it because of, just desires of aesthetics. There's argument about why this site has been chosen. We've had our own staff agree that moving this on this property is not a conducive to this operation. Same token, I think residents need to understand when they move out in the country, it isn't status quo forever. And if we don't want to have this as an ag zone type of use, commercial, and we need to change that, then we need to change that. But under their application, the staff's recommendation is to approve it. I'm failing to see what justification we wouldn't have to support the staff's recommendation, but that's my thought at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to overrule the decision of Planning Commission and approve their request for a conditional use permit.
We have a motion to approve the appeal. Is there a second? With that fails. Is there a motion to uphold the appeal?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to uphold planning and zoning, but I want to tell Mr. Cooper, Dave, we want you to build it. We just would like to see a different location, Dave. That's all. I don't want to stand in the way of this, but we'd just like to see if you could look at an alternative location. Hey, would that be my motion?
It's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to uphold the planning and zoning direction to deny the application, so in essence denying the appeal. I have to ask both commissioners, under what jurisdiction do we have to place such a requirement? It baffles me in all of the years that I have sat here, why we want to continue to go down this road, which I don't know that we have clear justification to do it. We've done it over and over again. If we need to place something in language that supports it, I say we do that. But right now we're doing it because I just don't know it. So please help me.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can help you.
That would be good.
I'm not happy with any of this either. One of the reasons I said this at the Planning and Zoning Commission to Mr. Cooper, one of the reasons I got on this commission is because I saw bad zoning decisions made in my own neighborhood. First of all, the first criteria is the impact of the proposed use on adjacent properties shall be, meaning that it's mandatory in terms of our consideration, shall be a major consideration. So that is one of the jurisdictional questions that you're alluding to, Mr. Chairman. So we, as an individual commissioner, we can say, what is the impact of the proposed use on adjacent properties? And then it goes on to further say, shall be a major consideration. So right there is your justification for people who want to say no. It's written right into our rules. And then it goes on to say the proposed use should be generally compatible with adjacent properties and other properties in the district. So that's criteria number one. And then criteria number two is measures shall be taken to ensure that the proposed use does not alter the general character of the area or neighborhood. So I guess that's jurisdictional question number two. And then question number three that we're allowed to consider is the effects of noise, odor, traffic, air and water pollution, and other negative factors shall be eliminated or controlled through the use of screening, setbacks, and orientation. So those are three things that give the commission the authority to be able to say no. Now, like I told you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not happy with any of it. I want to see the development occur, and I want to see it done in a very smart way so it doesn't affect traffic and safety and these kids, and you got 65 mile per hour speed limit here. I think it could be done. At the Planning and Zoning Commission, I made pretty similar comments. I will say this. Some of the testimony that we heard at the Planning and Zoning Committee was different than what you've heard today. There was a lot of discussion about drainage issues in this culvert, and Toby alluded to that in his comments. I haven't heard that today. I don't know if that's because I did hear from Janelle. She said that wasn't a big issue or concern for her, the drainage issue. But some of the other folks who spoke out of Planning and Zoning said they were worried about this culvert and it wasn't getting fixed, and there were drainage issues. Toby now has said, you know, they've looked at it and there won't be any drainage issues as a result of construction. Nobody really came here today and testified any further about it. I don't know if that's for lack of interest or because they thought they already put their 2 cents in or what. Or maybe the people who were opposed at that time talked to Toby in the interim. I don't know if that's true or not. Could be a combination of all of the above. But we do, in terms of the jurisdictional question, you can ask the question of what the impact will be on adjacent properties. And I think that's what you're hearing here today is got a bus driver who won't even, Miss Horner, I hope you ask the bus driver to pull into your yard now that Mr. Cooper said he found out that's a possibility that can happen. As a kid, when I was growing up, the school bus route would switch after Christmas break. So for the first half of the year, I'd have to go across the road at 6:45 in the morning, and then after Christmas break, the bus would go the other route, and I could just get right on from my driveway. And I grew up on Highway 9 in Iowa. Iowa's 55, not 65. So I know what you're saying. Busy highway, school bus driver won't even let the kids go across. I hope you invite them to come on your yard now and allow them to get on the bus, knowing that he said that. You talked about the traffic concerns. Mr. Cooper said there's going to be, could be 4 or 5 semi-trucks a day during what I presume to be is a very small period of time when they're doing the seed delivery. My uncle was a seed salesman forever. I saw the trucks go onto his yard, okay? It happens. It's a very short period of time when it happens. I just don't think there's any good answers here. I'm concerned about it. I wish Mr. Cooper, because I don't want to shut that development down, but we also want it to be safe. And it's got to fit within some of these floodplain and drainage issues as well. So I'm torn. I'm actually pretty torn by it. But those are my comments right now. And maybe there's a possibility of tabling this. Mr. Cooper can come back with additional considerations or stipulations that he'll agree to that could help resolve this.
Commissioners, thank you for reading what our options are. I guess when I've looked at the impact, it's pretty negative impact. Other than a site issue, there's 4 or 5 semis that might come in a day, not 8 every day. So when we talk about an impact in the area, it's really pretty light considering any change of use. And when we have a harvest, we'll have 150 acres of corn coming out at 200 bushels. There's 30,000 bushels of corn that will come off that field. 35 or 40 trucks in a period of time. So truck traffic, that's pretty minimal impact. Compatible with the area. We've encouraged in the past that ag type businesses, get placed out in the ag area where the ag community can use them. This is getting placed in a geographical area to serve the best his potential clientele. So I think it is compatible. Do I agree? I want to have it across the road? No. But there could be a lot worse that could come across the road. And as far as the bus, I think that is an ongoing, and I do encourage you to visit with the bus driver if you haven't already, to see if they'll come in the driveway. Maybe they do already, I don't know. Highway 44 is a high traffic road. It would then also not impact the county's budget as far as maintaining that road down the road for the extra traffic. To me, it seems like a logical place for it. I mean, it seems pretty light on the reasons why we would want to not have this ag business out in the ag community. So, but right now we have a motion to deny or uphold the planning and zoning's request, in essence denying the appeal. Is there any further questions or discussion on that?
Commissioner Aaron's, are you proposing that a tabling of this would be a wise at this time to explore this situation?
Yeah, I'd like to know more about the potential for a turning lane there and if that would alleviate the concerns. I don't know. I can't say that it would. I'm not there yet. But I don't want to deny it either. Then he's got to go through the whole process all over again. If he could table it, work with the DOT, find out some answers regarding the safety, as well as potential location, unless that's a non-starter. So that's where I'm at.
We're looking at about a 2-2 vote here, and as that goes down, we better have some alternative here in the situation.
Give the applicant a direction. What is it? Is it the location? Because everyone seems to be in agreement that we want to have this business done. Trying to move it on that site location of own planning and zoning staff, as well as the applicant has indicated that's not a logical move because of other and future drainage issues.
Well, I question that. I do question that. I do think there are modifications that can be made, whether you're going to have infill, you're going to have to added to move in, because I've seen 100 different developments come in and where they have these same issues and they have addressed them and they made it possible. This one is just a ready-made situation. I do understand that, but you still have the other implications of individuals living across the road. So I'm not convinced at all that Highway 111 is out of the question. I'm not at all. So.
But we've also sat on here and cringed every time we looked at filling in those spots so that someone can build. That has not been a conducive thing for other individuals downstream because we've taken up holding capacity. So I wouldn't support.
That's a whole other ordinance. We've done that multiple times.
And we have not liked to do any one of them, but we've done it. Anyway, I'm going to call the question. Sean?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Is this on? What motion is this on?
This is the only motion that is to deny the appeal.
To uphold the planning commission's decision.
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
No.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes. With that, Cooper Seeds is not going to be able to be viable, at least on this location with this application. It is a done matter. Where are we at, folks? Sean, help me out. I've lost track.
We have number 5 left, number 11 left, and then 13 through 15 left. And I believe that Dave Stewart will be here at 10:30.
Which Dave's coming at 10:30, so that one's... Is he here?
I do not see him.
You talk to them.
I've never been more disappointed, I will admit. Guys, Tiffany.
I could have took back my motion.
Yeah, we don't. We terminated it. Is Dave here? Otherwise we'll move on.
He was walking around.
Can we do the MOU?
Sure. What number is that?
11.
Oh, do you have that, Sean?
I can, I think Marlene was.
Oh, Marlene, you have it?
I do have number 11, which is the memorandum of understanding. It is in your share file. I think it is important that you all look at it before you agree to sign it. And it is my recommendation that it's my understanding that interviews will be on Wednesday. There are a lot of stipulations that the state has for us to be a part of the state 4-H program. So I would suggest that those who are interviewing take some time to look at what they are asking, since we have chosen to go with a county person rather than a state person. And we will look at signing it on the 22nd of September after you have interviewed the applicants for that position, because there are very strict requirements that the state still asks of us to be a part of the state 4-H program. So please take a look at that, and we will look at signing it on the 22nd of September.
Any questions?
If you have questions about it, please let me know.
Cool.
So this MOU that they're looking at.
Yes. Yes, it will, because that's not fulfilling these requirements will mean that we can no longer use the state 4-H. So yes, these are the requirements to be a part of the state 4-H. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Is Dave? Otherwise, I'll take up number 13. We have the excuse me. The RFPs coming in. The deadline is today at 1 o'clock. I'm asking the vice chair and myself to go through those, set up interview process, so that we can start interview process as quickly as our next meeting or before. But we would get back to you once we see how many RFPs are in and how many we may have to go to if everyone is. I'm just looking for approval to have the chairman and vice chairman go through those and set the appointment schedule up.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to move forward with your request, I guess.
Thank you. Second. Motion second. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I've got questions.
Yeah.
So, I understand it.
The applications, but then will all those applicants come before this commission to interview in public?
Yeah, unless there's one that doesn't not meet our criteria. I would notify everyone who they are. If somebody doesn't meet our requirements by not submitting either financials or something like that, they would be eliminated, I suggest. But now we'd be notified even of those that get eliminated, if any. And then whoever's left, we set up an appointment for the whole board to sit through. But I do ask that we may have to hold a special meeting to go through those, depending on how many we've had. So, is that acceptable?
Understood, Mr. Chairman.
And that's acceptable?
Yeah, so long as all qualified applicants are allowed to interview
Absolutely.
in public, I'm okay with that.
Well, I don't know if the whole application will be in public. I know the board will have to, because of potential litigation or contracts, some of that may go under interview process. But that is not what I'm asking right now. This is just asking that we can sort through those applicants, eliminate anybody, and notify you who has been eliminated because they don't meet criteria, and notify you who has to get interviewed and a time frame to do so.
Understood.
Is there a number?
We don't. They're not here until 1 o'clock.
We don't know a number yet. Okay.
1 o'clock is the deadline.
Yeah.
With that, I'd ask a motion, or Sean to call the roll.
Yes.
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes. Dave must be here now. Hey, want to come up? Thanks.
Do you prefer masks on here?
You're welcome to do whatever you feel comfortable with.
Well, good morning. You guys are almost right on time. So we thought maybe I wouldn't be right at 10:30, but appreciate it. Wanted to visit with the commission this morning just about the public defender contract. I had visited with Marlene at the end of last week and just asked if there would be a good time to get on the agenda just to start the topic and the discussion. So I had put together a letter to the commission over the weekend, provided it last night by email, and I know it's something that with the holiday weekend you've probably just only had a chance to look at. I just wanted to go through just in some brief detail on that. I'm not expecting any particular decision or anything today, but essentially just wanted to go through some of the thoughts that myself and Mr. Golden from the state's attorney have had about how to approach the contract going forward. A little bit of history. We had started the conflicts contract with the county back in 2000, and our firm had provided those services up through 2015. In 2016 is when our firm took over the main public defender contract. So at the end of this year, we'll be finishing up 5 years as your main public defender and our 21st year overall working for the county. I wanted to say again just how thankful we have been for that opportunity and the trust that you put in our office to provide the representation for the criminal defendants here in this county. It's been a long-standing relationship that we've had, and we appreciate it greatly. The contract that we're finishing for 2020 has been a 1-year contract, and this was the first time that we had come in and capped the felony numbers that our office would handle. That number is at 525 felonies. One of the things going forward is I was going to ask the council or ask the commission to do that once again, is to enter into a contract where we'd be capping total felonies at 525. And then also through discussions with Mr. Golden, we had talked about also potentially also having a cap on the misdemeanors. So what I'm proposing in this letter would be a cap on the felonies of 525, a cap on the misdemeanors of 500. The 500 on the misdemeanors is still a pretty good margin above the total that we've been handling. We haven't approached those figures yet. The only year where we had a pretty good spike in misdemeanors, and I'll just throw this up just to, if you look at 2017 and you go down the misdemeanor column, 2017 we had a very big spike in misdemeanors and it went up to 468. And then you can see it's dropped back and that 359 crept up again in 2019, approaching that 400 mark. The numbers on the bottom, that was only through May 31st. We're coming up on the end of the third quarter here, and I'll have new third quarter numbers that I'll provide to the commission and get down to the auditor's office so that she can get that in your packet. But when we're looking at capping the misdemeanors at the 500, we're still quite a ways above what we've been handling there. So I would think all the misdemeanors would still fall within our office. The felonies, as you can see, we are up approaching that 500 mark in 2019. Of course, a few things have happened this year with COVID-19, a little bit less case numbers that were coming in. The first part of the year, the first couple of months was right on track, and we were looking like we were going to be handling the same number of felonies that we would have been in 2019. And they're starting to come back in again now as we're getting later in the year. The one thing that I'm sure you're all aware of is that we've had the ability to start doing jury trials again here in Lincoln County. I think we've done at least 9 now. Maybe we're up to, I've got 2 more that were scheduled for this week, so we'd probably be up to 10 and 11. That is something that's coming back into play. We're starting to get caught up with a lot of things that had gotten postponed earlier this spring due to the virus. So those are all starting to work through the court system. The other columns that you can see on there, we have juvenile, A&M, the fugitive from justice. We just track those numbers separately. Those are extraditions where another state is looking for a particular client that got arrested here in South Dakota. I
usually lump those in as just a felony matter and deal with them as a felony, but we track them separately. And then the mental health files. Mental health files have been being paid outside of the contract unless they're a Lincoln County resident. I've been handling the Lincoln County residents as part of the contract, but it's myself and 2 other firms that are handling the mental health. One of the things that Mr. Golden and I have been exploring is that right now, with the number of felonies and misdemeanors that are being handled by our office, the other subject areas of juveniles and A&Ns, that's starting to become a conflict within the courthouse here because they're sending down other judges from Sioux Falls to handle those matters. Those are being handled on the same days that we have felonies, same days that we have misdemeanors, and I'm finding myself having to be trying to juggle schedules and not upset the judges and be in 3 courtrooms at the same time and try to make that work. So one of the things that we were proposing is taking the juveniles and A&Ns essentially off of the contract for the main public defender office, and then I would step away from mental health to try to free up more of my time to dedicate towards the felonies and then handling the matters that we're submitting for your consideration. The numbers that we handled in 2019 is what I was using to put together the proposal in front of you. We had 46 juveniles, and then we had 13 A&Ns. That was 59 files. You can see under juveniles, just through the end of May, we are sitting at 25 files. That's continuing about at the same pace. That's not quite at the end of May. That's not quite a half a year. So we're going to be at 50, probably in that 50 to mid 50s, I would think, with the juveniles. But what I was looking at is basically the per case number that we were operating under last year. We had come in talking about the 2020 contract of estimating right around 1,100 cases total. We had proposed $768 is kind of the way the math worked out. What I did by removing the juveniles and A&Ns from this is if I took those 59 cases, I had taken our total contract amount for last year, and I'd taken off $46,500 to take us down to the 800 even. That $46,500 divided by the 59 cases came out at about the $788 a case, a little bit higher than what we were figuring at the $768, but I wanted to back that amount out for the files that we wouldn't be handling, and that was the rationale on that side. What I'm proposing, because we'd be looking at having capped numbers for the felonies and then for the misdemeanors, it essentially has a amount that allows me to bid and start looking at a multi-year contract instead of having to come in and both from my side and also from the commission of having to review the contract each year. We would be comfortable offering and asking the commission to consider a 3-year contract once again. The dollar amount at the 2021 would essentially be from that $768 a case to $780 a case, so about $11 per case increase. That would come out to about a 1.4% increase overall, even though we're backing the total contract amount down. And then each year after that, for the 2022 and 2023, we would be looking at and asking the commission to consider just cost of living adjustments only on the contract of a 1.5% for starting 2022 and then starting 2023. What we have been using historically in the past when we've been doing just the escalators or the adjustments on a multi-year contract, we've typically been using 3%. I'm certainly aware, as most of folks, what you're dealing with right now, just budget-wise and the constraints that you're under. So I had proposed having that number, the normal 3% adjustment, and going to just a 1.5%. So those would be the main highlights. The other thing would be, right now I know the commission's very aware of the serious cases that we've had come down recently here. 3 of those that have been here in our county, our office is handling 2 of them, one of which is a death penalty case, where my conversations have focused with Mr. Golden as well is looking to take out the A and B felonies out of the contract, I'm finding it very difficult to come up with any rational number to be able to submit or justify the risk of coming in and handling those types of cases under the contract. Saying it a different way is essentially for the two murder files that we'd be handling, because we're at a per case rate of $760 some. That's essentially what I'm getting paid to handle that. If that's outside of the contract, if you're going out to a private attorney, you understand what the dollar amounts that would be involved with a private attorney handling that kind of firm or that kind of case. So we're proposing to keep the Class Cs in, which would still be many of the cases that would go up to potential life in prison. We would keep Class Cs within the contract, but just ask to take out the A's and B's. And if I've kind of missed anything, I don't know if Mr. Golden wants to jump in and provide any information. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer some questions and go over the proposal. I wanted to get it in a written form just to the commission so you guys could start looking at it. I know we're trying to finish up the budget process here by the end of September, so just wanted to get this to you so that you had something. If any of you want to meet with me as a committee or individually, I'm happy to meet with anybody and go over all the numbers and proposal.
Dave, I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So the chart that we're looking at up on the screen, is that just what your office has handled, or is that the entire number of people that have gone through the system here in Lincoln County?
That's just my office.
Okay. And so there are others, but, for example, if there's a conflict in your office, other attorneys do get appointed by judges to take care of some of these types of cases, right?
There would be that scenario. It would also be if a private defendant was coming through and they wanted to hire their own attorney. And,
of course.
Yeah,
but in terms of what the county and the public is responsible for paying for.
Sure.
Now, in 2018, it looks like we had 109 mental health cases, and then that dropped down to 33. Can you explain that?
Certainly. When we first took over the contract in 2016, there was a provision in the contract that had always been there from previous years that essentially we were required to also handle any mental health files where somebody was being committed to at that time down to the Human Service Center down in Yankton. In the past, when the prior public defenders would be handling those, you'd maybe have 2 or 3 in a year. And what happened was there's been a big change with the staffing and how HSC is being funded down in Yankton. So Avera Mental Health has become basically the defunct or the default behavioral health and human service center. Because it's in Lincoln County, we're now handling anybody that's a Lincoln County resident plus out of state, out of county. Anybody that's being brought essentially from anywhere in our state is coming to Avera most likely. So you can see right away, even starting in 2016, there was 87. It went up to 102, 109. The big change between the 109 and then the 33 is that we brought in 2 other outside firms just to start splitting up that caseload. And we take essentially a week at a time. So if it's my week, any files that are coming through from Avera at that point that we have to have hearings on, I would go up and handle those. Then the other 2 firms rotate with me. What we had worked out as an agreement with the county is that when I was still handling all of those in 2017 and 2018, none of us had expected that type of a volume. But what we were doing is because they're county of origin, so if somebody came from here and they're coming down from their county, Lincoln County bills back the county of origin for that person, and then we're being reimbursed here. So essentially, the cost that I would bill to the county for doing that representation would be a pass-through, and then our auditor's office would send that up to their county of residence, and then we would be recouping those. So that's what's happening essentially for my firm and the 2 others that are handling the mental health. Except if it's a Lincoln County resident, then I don't bill anything additional for the Lincoln County resident because I felt that would always be under our contract that we had.
And then the 2 firms that you talked about, do they subcontract under you? or are they separately contracted with the county?
They are separate. They're not part of any subcontract that I'm doing through mine. It's just something where they had approached the chairman of the mental health board, and the chairman had started utilizing those other two firms as well, just to have that coverage.
And you guys just coordinate in terms of scheduling, week on, week off, et cetera?
We do. The chairs are typically sending out calendars for a month or 2 months at a time, so everybody knows who the qualified mental health professional is that's working up at Avera. We know who the defense attorney would be, and then we know which chairman is on for that particular week and handling cases.
So under your proposal here, if I understand correctly, and I haven't seen your letter yet, that you talked about earlier, you want to shed mental health, A&N, and juvenile, as well as certain classes of felonies.
The A and B on the felonies, and then
the serious stuff.
Right. So essentially, it's going to be your premeditated murder, those types of cases that would be coming in, the most serious. And then that's something that currently the commission has been contracting for, and you're part of the catastrophic fund. That's essentially the insurance policy on the backside for the county on those types of files.
And just one other question or area. Since the COVID issue came about, has there been less people incarcerated as a result of that? You know, like, for example, normally somebody would get arrested and held over. Instead, they're getting like a summons and told to show up in court.
On the what I would classify as mainly your less serious misdemeanors, I think more of that. There was actually a bond schedule that came out that the courts looked at that just said, if a law enforcement officer is dealing with X, Y, or Z, just cite them to court. Don't take them into custody. That's on the less serious. Right. Anything else that's felony level, they're all still coming into custody. We're having the next day temporary custody hearing to determine whether or not they're going to stay in custody. I would say you're still running at pretty good capacity. For the number of beds, we still have pretty well full up on the Lincoln County side. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of quite serious matters that are happening. So we still see about the same number in custody.
So with regard to the revised bond schedule, have you noticed any unique issues with regard to people not showing failure to appear, bench warrants being issued? Has that increased? Or here's what I'm getting at. I'll put all my cards on the table. Is the revised bond schedule, does it have a great likelihood of being implemented as a normal bond schedule moving into the future?
Hard to tell, but my own personal opinion, I think it'll probably revert back to the original bond schedule. And you're going to be looking at if somebody's getting picked up for possession of marijuana, they're going to come into custody and they're going to bring them down and have them in custody at least until they post bond or make a court appearance. Some of those things I think will probably revert back and go back a little bit more to the normal way. I don't know overall. Your other question was about the failure to appears. Failure to appears, unfortunately, is becoming just so commonplace anymore. I don't know if it's a whole mentality shift with the defendants, the fact that so many of them are drug related. The two things that are very common that we're dealing with in court right now is the drug nature of most of the crimes, and then also a large majority have mental health problems. So you're dealing with essentially a dual diagnosis, both mental health and the controlled substance. In a lot of those aspects, for those individuals, either one, it's I don't care because I'm currently under the effects of addiction, or they just don't have the mental capacity where they're following through with court dates, and it's not something that they're staying up on. So that is the frustrating thing, is trying to always stay in contact with them and track them down and essentially get them to court. We're seeing a huge increase in the total number of failure to appears that we deal with on a regular basis.
About a month ago, it went back to the regular bond schedule.
Bill, if I could, if you're gonna, for the mic, thank you.
About a month ago, it went back to the regular bond schedule, pre-COVID, with a couple of very minor changes, but otherwise, it's back to where it was at.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, yeah. Dave, those numbers through 5/31 of 20 on the felonies, that number has dropped off based on other years. That's, I'm sure COVID related to some degree.
It was, January, February, that took off just like a normal year.
Yeah.
And then once COVID came into the scene, the number started slowing down just simply because, I don't think law enforcement was having as much engagement with the general public, where we would normally see just arrest after arrest, whether it's from a traffic stop or something like that.
And then just a question, your total staff, I mean, you got yourself, and then there's areas where there's conflict,
So the way that we're handling it right now, it's myself, and then I have 2 paralegals that are here with me in the courthouse, and then I subcontract with 2 other attorneys to help with the felony files, and then there's 2 other attorneys that I'm subcontracting with to handle the misdemeanors.
Okay, I was just curious what you're obviously not doing the whole shebang yourself, but thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any further questions for Mr. Stewart? Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, you bet. And please let me know if you want me to come back at one of the next meetings. If there's any questions that any of you have, be happy to visit with you. Thank you.
Be safe. Does that take us up to number 14?
It does.
Good morning, Madam Auditor.
Good morning. I am here first to talk just a little bit. Commissioner Gillespie had asked me to provide this information to him, and I asked that I share this with all of you before I give it to him. This is a cost of what it would cost each person based on the bond question that is out there. I based it on $35 million, for a 25-year and a 30-year. $40 million bond for 25 and a 30-year, and a $50 million bond for the 25-year and 30-year. Those are based on $100,000 valuation, $250,000 valuation, $500,000 valuation, and $1 million. The thing that I want to caution everyone about is that is based on 2021's valuation. So what I did was I went ahead and provided for you what the levy was for this particular courthouse. We borrowed, our bond was $8.9 million for this courthouse. It started being levied in 2006. The levy then per thousand was .280, and the valuation was $3,139,210,752. If you will notice, all the way through this year, that levy continues to change and go down. We here in Lincoln County are very fortunate that our valuations do not stay the same. If our valuation were to stay at the $7 billion that it is, $7,022,000,000, whatever it might be right now, it's that $7,022,698,145, then you would have to pay that $26.30 a year on $100,000 of valuation, or $65.75 on $250,000. Those would remain stagnant as well. As you can see, since 2006, you can see what our valuation has done here. You'll notice that in probably about 9 and 10, that valuation stayed rather stagnant. The reason for that was because in 11, I believe it was 11, right, Carla? When they stopped valuing ag land at its valuation and went to productivity. Rather than the value of ag land, we all now pay on productivity. I remember that created quite a dilemma when we went to that, because it meant that the schools got a lot less money, because we went to productivity rather than the valuation of land. But because the valuation of land was increasing so immensely, the state legislature then felt it was better to go to productivity, which we have been doing since that point in time on ag land. So my point being is that while we look at these numbers are based on 2021's valuation of property. And I believe I just heard Planning and Zoning, Toby Brown, say we're way above on building permits, etc., which means that we are now getting more parcels and more value to divide that per dollar and levy between. So until Lincoln County stops growing and that valuation stays stagnant, we're very fortunate. Bonhomme County had 0.5% growth in their valuation this year. They were pretty excited to have 0.5%. We continue to hold that 3 to 5% growth here in Lincoln County. Well, growth is wonderful and brings us taxes. It also brings about problems as well, as we all well know. And so that information is available to you. Everyone can have a copy of that. But I do need to remind you that those levies change year by year. They are not constant, and the amount that you pay for that bond is not constant. And because I am nearing the end of my career here, in 17 and a half year career in the auditor's office, which before I was in the treasurer's office for a total of 2 years part-time and 4 years as full-time, I would like to share with you my passion here as Lincoln County with taxes. The taxes are very interesting and very complicated. A very complicated way of, and I think it's important that we all understand what our tax statement looks like and how it's figured. So these numbers don't represent, actually these are based on last year's 19 pay 20s. But here we look at Canton, and we look at the levy of the city of Canton. I have nothing to do with that. The city of Canton prepares their own budget, and they submit it to me. The county share and the school share. Again, I have nothing to do with what the school gets. The county has no part of that. All I have to do with it is they submit that levy to me, that request to me, and I figure it for them. So that's what the city of Canton looked like. So the county got 11% of every tax dollar that was collected for the city of Canton and the school of Canton. Our bond was 0.105 and the highway bond was 0.077. That was added to the general fund to get a total of 2.128. The city got 49% and the school got 44%. That's a very rare circumstance. Canton is the only place that happens. It is the school usually gets the most amount of the tax dollar. Then we look at the city of Lenox. Again, the county only gets 11%, and the city gets 42%, and the school gets 47%. And we look at the city of T, the same circumstance. The school gets a little bit more there because they have more bonds out. So that makes them get a bigger share of the pie. The city of Harrisburg, the county gets 12%. The city of Harrisburg has a very low levy as well. It's just a little over $3. Most cities are in the city of Sioux Falls is a little over $4, but the rest of them are about in that $8 to $9 range. The city of Sioux Falls, the county again only gets 11% of that tax dollar. And the city of Sioux Falls in the Harrisburg School District, again, that's a little bit different picture. The county only gets 9% in the Harrisburg School District. And then we went on to some townships where you can see it's a little bit different because your township levy is considerably lower. They operate on a lot less money than what your municipalities do. All right, so this is how growth is figured. We take the total growth number that the assessor office gives to us, and we take the final year before, and we divide that final growth number by the final valuation number by the growth number, and you get 3.668%. That's how much growth Lincoln County recognized, and this again is 19 pay 20 because we don't have the levies yet for 20 pay 21. We get 2.4. Last year we got 2.4% as CPI. This year we will experience 1.7%. So our total growth factor was that. So to figure out what the county taxes are going to be, I have to go back to the taxes that we figured that we collected the year before, which was $12,190,925. I get to add that, multiply that times the growth. So in 19 pay 20, we got to add $739,746. Then I take that total divided by the total of the valuation, and I came up with the county general operating levy of 1.946. And then we did the courthouse bond and the highway building bond. Again, those bonds are figured by the amount of the bond payment that is due. That changes from year to year because as we pay down, the interest becomes less. And so, of course, like anything else, the less interest there is, the less the payment is. The principal stays pretty much the same. So that is how we figure growth. Now that's how we figure levy because that's all the taxes that this county gets to collect. That's all the tax dollar that you're paying to this county is based on that 1.946 per 100,000 of valuation. So then we take the school tax revenue. Now, the state legislature sets as a part of their session, they have to set the ag classification levy, the owner-occupied levy, and the other levy. Plus, they also set the 1.616. We on the county levy have nothing to do with that. It is state mandated. It is chosen by the legislature. It's my understanding that what creates that little bit of magic is the Department of Education does their little magic to say how much the state can pay for the schools and then revert to the county to pay their share to operate that. So you can understand that the ag classification gets considerably less of a levy against them. The owner-occupied is somewhat less, and the other then is the top. So anybody who has business or rentals, that's the amount that we use for that. The capital outlay goes by growth in CPI for a maximum dollar of $3. Again, this year it was decided that we have to do that in a different way. It's based on the number of students per capita. We're relying heavily on the state to let us know how capital outlay is going to be figured again this year, because they have chosen to change the way that is figured as well. The school also gives a dollar amount for each bond, so you can see that the school levies are very different. Here's a tax statement that shows you what you're paying to the school district, what you're paying to the county, and what you're paying to the city of Canton. If you live in Sioux Falls, or if you live in Harrisburg or Lenox, they apply additional drainage fees, etc., and from footage fees to those tax statements that also is a part of that tax dollar. To prepare the school levies, we have to combine valuations. Every school district in Lincoln County shares with another county, with the exception of Harrisburg. Harrisburg School District is strictly only in Lincoln County. We do not share valuations or levy amounts with any other one. T is Minnehaha and Lincoln. Lenox is Minnehaha, Lincoln, and Turner. Beresford is Clay, Turner, and Union. Alcester is Union and Lincoln County. Canton is Minnehaha County and Lincoln County. So that is all compiled together. We have to take all of those valuations into effect when we do that. We have to figure abatements. Any of the abatements that you do have to be figured in so that the schools can recoup that on the general fund as well as on the capital outlay side. So we complete all the forms. The levies are approved by the Department of Revenue. They're entered into our computer, and the state, the tax statements are created and mailed to you, hopefully by the second week in January. And this process starts in September and hopefully is completed by January 1. We have special assessments that have to be added into that. A part of a lot of people's tax statement is also any maintenance fees that road districts put on them if they're in a road district. So that's the tax process. So the county gets a very small share of that tax dollar. And in that respect, if we look back at what our budget is, we here have been very fortunate to have other revenue, but the total taxes that are being collected from the taxpayers, the $13,549,016. That's all. The rest of it, and I think I've been very adamant in talking about this with budget, that I figure low the other revenues that we have and figure the expenses where we need them to be so that we have a little leeway. I think we probably all know what our own personal incomes are, and that's how we figure our budget. So with that being said, thank you for listening to me and bearing with me as I shared with you my passion for Lincoln County, which has always been taxes. It's an interesting and very convoluted situation that has been created for us to handle. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Are you willing to answer any questions if there are any? I don't know if there is, but
I've got one, Mr. Chairman. Marlene, I want to thank you for putting up with me, and I asked you, and you delivered, and thank you for doing that.
Yes.
So I've had a lot of people who wanted to know these amounts. I think these are, you wanted to wait till they were accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if as long as growth continues, then these would tendency to drop. If growth stopped, then these figures would be, stay the same and downwards otherwise. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
So, yes, that's my job here, is to do what you ask.
Marlene, thank you. If anybody doesn't think this is a complicated situation, they should know. My goodness.
All right.
and I know you probably said it, but just a clarification, when we look at our growth factors, we never get to include any reappraisal valuation.
No.
It's strictly
We do not.
new growth, not a revaluation. And a lot of times there's comments that we generate reappraisals just to create more revenue for the county. Just clarification that does not happen.
And anybody who would like to look at that, I could show you how we determine those. We take them from the assessor's office. The assessor's office gives us all of those numbers. They turn them from assessed value, and I turn them into taxable money, because assessed value is not taxable money. Each year, the assessor's office is given a taxable rate that we multiply times the assessed value, which makes the taxable levy less than the assessed value.
Very good. Any other questions?
Thank you.
This leads us into our final discussion of the day, budget. Does anybody like to discuss any aspect of our budget that we've been looking at for months now? Quiet group today.
I spoke last week regarding Commissioner Schmidt, my proposal. That's just two of us getting together. That could be modified or changed. No problem there, but that was what we kind of agreed on without shooting each other, I guess. So anyway, so that's all I have.
The only question I'd have, and I commend you both for working on that, is to present somewhat of an idea and a 10-year proposal of how we maintain our roads. It seems like we constantly are removing items out of the budget of the highway department that needs it desperately, and it would be nice to know how in the long-term plan how we can stop doing that so our roads can be at least as in good a condition as we have now. So.
If I may interject just a moment, please, anything that is changed on that budget will need to be made by a motion today for us to change it.
Oh, that changes the circumstances.
Yes, it does. Anything after the September 1st has to be done as a motion and recorded in our minutes to change it on that budget.
And that has to be done.
That's not the final budget we passed.
Yes.
You pass the provisional. Anything after the public hearing that is changed on that provisional budget has to be done by a motion.
But it has to be done today, by today?
Oh, no, you can do it on the 22nd yet. It's just very hard for us to make any changes.
Okay, I think that everybody just took the jobs, because I think there's a lot of those.
We can certainly do that on the 22nd. You'll just have to give us time to make those changes, to make those available to you to see what that budget looks like then.
More negotiations.
Okay, and that's fine. I'm just letting you know that any changes made have to be done in a motion process.
Marlene, what is the 22nd is your drop dead date? Is there another date outside of that has to be submitted, or?
Well, I don't know what the Department of Revenue will do to you if you don't pass a budget. I mean, I guess that's a question I have to ask the Department of Revenue. These are the Department of Revenue guidelines that tell us by October 1st these budgets need to be in place. I'm written up if they're not. You're not. I am written up as a comment against me, and my last audit was no comments, and I guess I don't care about this one because I won't be around to see it, but I'd still like to leave it in that manner.
Thank you.
We don't want to put a black dot beside your name, Marlene.
Is there anything else to come before the board today? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Gillespie.
Motion second to adjourn. Any comments? Sean?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Landine?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins?
Yes. Thanks, everyone, for coming.